In today's session, we're going to cover working with your content via Object Explorer. Object Explorer is the browser for your Urban EA repository. The way it works is by allowing you access directly into the repository and by being able to view all the information within your models, so your diagrams, your matrices, your object types, as well as being able to see all the associations, to create associations, to be able to get previews of diagrams. The biggest difference between Object Explorer and Model Explorer, which we will navigate through in another session, is that Model Explorer is used for the management of user access and power levels, which is an administrative function, while Object Explorer is for everyone, for all users. There are no administrative functions. It's really meant to be a browser for your repository and all of its details. To launch Object Explorer, simply open up the Urban CW Suite Start Here page, and you'll find Object Explorer under Modeling. When you first open up Object Explorer, it looks like there isn't any information to see, but you're seeing all the models listed on the left. So a model is a container of information that is like a standalone repository. So if you look at all the models here, you will see our EA Foundation sample model listed. And when you expand the name of that model, you can then see information below the model, including the modeler diagrams, matrices, and all the object types. Now, this list of object types will get populated with the object count. So if you were to, for instance, click on Applications, you'll notice that the object count gets refreshed. So that doesn't get cached just for saving your RAM. And as you navigate through all of these objects, you'll notice there are details on the right. So the first thing you'll get is a list of objects with some columns, and the columns are properties of those objects. So as you navigate through, for instance, applications or documents or domains, external entities, events, results, let's say processes, you will continue to get more and more information. And each one of these areas is showing you the instances of those objects. For instance, processes has 108 objects, and now you'll notice that here on the right. And these are all the instances right here. Now, as soon as you click on an object, like a process, for instance, let's say we choose a process such as deliver order, and here's deliver order. Now, when I click on deliver order, that will show me two things below it. It will show me the associations in the middle pane and all the properties in the bottom pane. Now, one thing I want you to realize is that the columns can also be chosen. So you are not limited to the columns you see here. In fact, if you right-click on any one of these spaces at the top, you can actually go to your column chooser. When you go into the column chooser, you'll see all the columns listed here on the right, which means you can either remove some of the existing columns or you can add another column. So if you wanted to, for instance, add the created by column, you simply drag it in, just like you would in Microsoft Outlook or other Windows tools. So here you have created by now listed here, and you'll see a lot of these things have been created by administrator. And when you look at information here, one of the things you may want to be able to do is to be able to find things quickly and easily. So you can actually turn on the contains text option, filtering while you're typing. So this is from the object option. Now you can also go through and on the object list, turn on to filter your object. So as soon as you turn on to filter the object, you'll get this option at the top to actually type something in. So if I wanted to find deliver order easily, I can just start typing that in and it will find deliver order for me. And as soon as I choose it, again, you can see its associations in the middle and the properties at the bottom. One of the things about the associations and the properties is that if you were to choose a diagram, like the swim lane diagram we made in a previous session, you'll get to see the properties of the diagram at the bottom, including its preview. So the preview is something that's really helpful if you remember what the diagram looked like, but you weren't sure, for instance, which one it was. So I have another one here called From Excel and another one I can definitely tell it's the first one because that's what it looked like. And from here, you can always open the diagram by clicking on the diagram icon. So just a point of reference there, you'll notice that this icon is exactly the same as this one. This is the Irwin CW Suite icon for diagram. So it's these three little rectangles connected by a line. That's our symbol for diagrams. So if you notice that, it'll be easier to find things. Now here in the middle, you can also look at association. So if you wanted to take deliver order and create an association for it to something else, simply right click on the space and click on new association. That will let you choose the type of object that you wish to associate to. So if you wanted to associate to a role, for instance, if you click on roles, this will give you a list of all the existing roles in your model. The model that we're in is the EA Foundation sample model. So just a little reminder, and this is the model that we're in. I'm circling it on the left. So this list of roles is specific to that model. If you wanted to see another list of roles from another model, we would have to do some work there. We could import it into this model as well if we wanted to actually leverage some of these other roles. In any case, you can go through this and find the specific roles that you wish to associate. For instance, if we wanted to, let's say, link a role, I don't know if I have any transport roles here, but let's just say let's say an accountant. We'll just say an accountant for the sake of this little demonstration. When we click OK, that will allow you to simply associate the role to that process. If you wanted to remove this association later, you could simply delete the association by doing a right click. And one last thing about associations is that in the association name section, if you were to click on that, and if you have any special attributes like RACI information, you can see them listed here. This is a really nice place where you can set that information. So if you click on the edit, this little pencil button, which is really a way of editing it, that will show you your RACI information right here. So if you said that this accountant is responsible and accountable for delivering orders, when I click OK, you'll notice that when I go back to this association, the responsible and accountable will be set to yes. And if you had a RACI matrix, you would be able to see that information in the RACI matrix. Now, when you're looking for information here, this is also really helpful for being able to do a quick report. So the information you find, let's say you wanted to filter by all the high criticality processes, and here I'm still looking for deliver order, so I'm actually going to remove this find and only look for high criticality. I can export my displayed objects. And again, this is why it might be helpful for you to say, okay, I don't actually care about unique IDs. I don't want to export that information. I don't want to confuse anyone. Or maybe you do want to leave it in so that people can monitor their objects based on names and unique IDs. But if this is just a friendly report, maybe just leave a few columns here, whatever you need to have, click on export displayed objects, and you can export them to Excel, which will then create a report for you. And then you can open up that report and be able to see it in Excel. And here is that report where we simply saved a list of all the processes that were of criticality, high criticality, and you can see this gives me a very quick report of 28 items, 27 items. First column is the name, so the 27 items with their names, criticalities, categories, created by, creation date, and update date. The last thing you can do in Object Explorer that's unique to Object Explorer is the ability to view folders. So folders are something that is a part of your Irwin CW suite. It's a structural part of the whole suite, but you can see them physically in Object Explorer. So what you can do is when you're using folders is you can configure a model for folders simply by choosing the Enable Folders in this model option. What that will do is it will create that meta model structure for you, and then you'll be able to physically see folders in Object Explorer, and you can organize things through folders. You can organize different objects in a folder. You can also add things to multiple folders, and you can delete things from folders. So I'm going to enable folders, and I'll come right back to show you what that looks like. When you choose to enable folders, you'll get this question, and you'll hit OK. And now you'll see that it's enabling folders. Once folders become enabled in a model, you'll see that it says no folders exist in this model. So it's right here in the top left corner, folders. Now what we can do is we can actually create a folder in here. I'll create a top level folder just called EA, and perhaps underneath this folder we can have a subfolder, and the subfolder could be, for instance, the product management process or something like that, whatever you want it to be. Now, when you're looking at the objects in your model, let's say you're looking at processes. My folders are right there on the left. Of course, I can look for something called product or process or price. Let's say we look for process. So we have these different processes. We still are set to high criticality, so we will clear that off so we can see any things with the word process and anything. Actually, let's go back to product. I've cleared my criticality filter. I can see lots of different products. So you have two options. You can either take these processes and drag them into the product management folder, or you can see what their associations are, and you can choose those things. So you have those two options. So let's say we click on Pick Product. Pick Product has these associations. So there's a warehouse in a diagram. And let's say if I grab these two from the associations window, I can actually drag them into my product management folder. So they will still, of course, show up here. So if I look at product management, I'll get that swim lane diagram and warehouse organization. So you can see that the folders, the nice thing about folders is that you can organize different types of objects from here. And later on, you can export a folder if you needed to give someone that section of your model. Now, one thing that's really important to keep in mind is if you were to delete something from here, it will delete it from everywhere it exists. Of course, unless it's on a diagram. So just like anything that might exist on a diagram, you can't delete. You also can't delete it if it lives in a folder and happens to be on a diagram. But if something is not on a diagram or happens to be a diagram itself, then of course you will be able to delete it if you hit delete. So one thing to keep in mind as an option is that you can always simply remove an object from a folder, similar to clearing something from a diagram. So you can remove it from a folder, which will keep it in your repository, but simply remove it from the folder. And that's one way to avoid accidentally deleting things which are not on diagrams. So just in a very simple review, Object Explorer is a useful way of looking at the model content that's in your model. Object Explorer gives you ways to filter objects and their associations. You can create an ad hoc report. You can save it to Excel, HTML, and text. You can also create folders in order to organize your information and perhaps share it with others later on.